Hi, and welcome back for another daily dose of anime recaps. In this episode, we'll be covering the first 4 episodes of the anime named Hensuki. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. A young high schooler receives a love letter that doesn't mention a name. However, attached to it is a pair of panties. This is the story of Keiki Kiryu, who is desperate for a girlfriend, but doesn't know who wrote him the love letter. When he wants to discover the person who wrote him the love letter, he gets dragged into a shady world of perversion and the many unwanted secrets disclosed to him. Before we begin, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update from us. Keiki Kiryu is a normal high school boy who one day wakes up with a weird dream and wishes to have a girlfriend. During the class, an upperclassman named Sayuki Tokihara texts him to visit her in the calligraphy club. When he reaches the club room, he sees it filled with calligraphy papers and helps Sayuki clean up. 3 other girls named Yuika Koga, Mao Nanjiao, and his sister Mizuha Kiryu also volunteer to help them. And after cleaning the room, Keiki tells him that working together and spending time is a fun memory to have. All the girls decide to leave except Keiki, who catches on to Sayuki's sleeplessness and takes on remaining chores by himself. He sees some student couples which piss him off in an adorable way and makes him wish to have a girlfriend. When he comes back to the club room after disposing of the ink, he sees a love letter along with panties for him. He opens the love letter and sees, "I love you" written in it, without a person's name. The love letter makes him crazy happy, but the panties cause him to freak out big time. He discusses it with his friend Shaoma Akiyama, who makes odd explanations on the matter. However, he tells Keiki that finding the love letter in the clubroom means the girl who wrote it for him is one from his cleaning party. Keiki begins his quest to find the girl who wrote him the love letter by deciding to visit the clubroom when Sayuki meets him on the stairs and takes the clubroom's keys from him. Keiki thinks of the girls who cleaned up the room with him. He goes to the library and thanks Yuika for helping him clean up the clubroom. When she suspects him of joining the calligraphy club because of Sayuki's womanly figure, he begins to suspect her to be the girl who wrote him the letter. During basketball practice, he notices Mao staring at him and Shaoma and thinks that she likes him. The next moment, he gets hit by a basketball to the face and wakes up in the nurse's office with Mao sitting near him. Mao asks Keiki if he was looking at someone he likes during practice, but Keiki counter-questions her that if he was interested in someone, would she support him? Mao at once says a straight no and leaves. After getting better, Keiki thinks that Mao is the one behind the love letter, as he noticed her acting strange in the nurse's office, but doesn't come to any conclusions. When he comes out of the school, he sees Sayuki with a dog and hears her complain that the dog isn't talking to her in human language. Soon the dog owner shows up and thanks them for taking care of it. Sayuki says she envies the lady and the dog, which Keiki takes as if she loves to have a puppy as a pet. She asks Keiki to pet her head, which he does, and she kisses his cheek as a reward for being nice to her all the time. The next day, Keiki barges into the clubroom and asks Sayuki straight about the love letter and the panties, but he fails the attempt when she freaks out at him. He comes out of the room talking to himself that he should take her on a date so he can ask her again in a more appropriate way. Sayuki overhears him saying that and suddenly says yes, she would go on a date with him. Keiki takes her to a cafe and treats her to a parfait, which she eats with delight. She then thanks him for saving the calligraphy club last year by joining it. And after a pause, he asks her if she secretly has feelings for him. Sayuki gets flustered by that and runs from the cafe, which makes him sure that Sayuki is behind the love letter after all. For the next few days, Sayuki avoids him and keeps running away from him. Mao advises him to slam his hand against the wall and ask her straight. Keiki is surprised and tells her it's out of character for her to talk about romance. Mao gets embarrassed about that and pinches Keiki's stomach and leaves, telling him to get on good terms with his clubmate. He suddenly sees Sayuki, and after chasing her, he slams his hand against a wall and says he knows her secret, but is hesitant inside. She suddenly confesses about having a secret and asks him if he hates her because of her secret. Keiki answers that he doesn't hate her and instead likes it. She then asks him to see her in the clubroom after school tomorrow. He waits all day and as school ends, goes straight to the clubroom and finds Sayuki telling him that she is glad that he accepts her for what she is. She then asks him to close his eyes, which he does. And as he opens his eyes, he freaks out as Sayuki demands him to become his cruel master while wearing weird clothes. She confesses that she is a hardcore masochist pervert and is nervous and aggressive about it at the same time, as she shows her happiness saying to Keiki that she loves that he knows her secret. At that moment, Keiki realizes that he's screwed up big time as both of them are not on the same page. Sayuki keeps insisting that he become her master and orders her around to satisfy her perverted wishes, and Keiki feels he's in trouble. Keiki meets his teacher in the stairway who praises him for cleaning out the clubroom, but tells him that he left the door unlocked after cleaning. Keiki thinks he remembers perfectly locking the door himself, and then suddenly concludes that the girl behind the love letter must have already been in the clubroom at the moment that she put the love letter on the table and would have heard him coming to the outside, so she hid. He then goes on to think that after he unlocked the room from the outside, the girl would have opened the door from the inside and left it unlocked. After talking to Shaoma, he goes back to the classroom and thanks Mao for giving him the advice to talk to Sayuki straight up. He then helps Yuika in the library when Sayuki suddenly shows up and teases him. He tells her not to disturb him while he is working, to which she replies that it is the best time for him to punish her as her master. When Yuika sees Sayuki teasing Keiki, she tells him to stop teasing him. Sayuki tells her that she can tease him since they're close and also reveals about their date. This makes her angry and she runs away. Afterward, Sayuki teases Keiki again while picking a book and eroticizes their last meeting, which Yuika hears, and questions the meaning behind Sayuki's statements. Yuika then asks Keiki if he went on a date with Sayuki, to which he replies yes. She then questions him again, asking if he cornered her assertively, and Keiki's reply is again yes, while his face shows signs of shame. She calls him filthy and asks if he and Sayuki are together, to which he denies it. When Keiki asks Yuika what he can do to make her feel good, she suddenly gets happy and asks for a date on the upcoming Sunday. Keiki's sister, Mizuha, catches him acting strange and finds out he's going on a date with Yuika this Sunday. Mizuha teaches his inexperienced brother about everything he has to do to make the date good. The day of the date arrives and Keiki follows Mizuha's every instruction and starts the date by going to the meeting point early. When Yuika shows up, he compliments her dress and hair according to the instructions, which makes her very happy. Next, he takes her to watch a movie and escorts her to the theater holding her hand like a princess. After that, they go to a fast food restaurant, which is again instructed by Mizuha. Keiki keeps thanking Mizuha for the instructions in his mind while the date progresses smoothly, except when Mao watches both of them outside the restaurant's window secretly and gets mad at Keiki. Later, Keiki takes Yuika shopping. After running around the shops, she excuses herself for a bathroom break. Keiki waits for her and starts worrying when she doesn't show up soon. He starts looking for her and finds her being harassed by some boys. He runs towards her and takes her away from the boys, saying she's with me. He gets mad at the boys and says sorry to Yuika for not looking for her effectively. This makes Yuika mega happy and she kisses Keiki's forehead, thanking him for saving her. While returning from their date, Keiki remembers how Yuika was always secluded because of being half Japanese. But he liked her hair and eyes and found them beautiful while the others would completely ignore her. He also remembers trying to talk to her non-stop every day in the beginning until one day she started feeling relaxed, smiling and having normal conversations with him. The next day, Keiki is having lunch with Shaoma when suddenly he receives a text from Yuika saying she has something important to discuss, so meet her in the storage room in the library after school. He goes to the storage room to see Yuika as asked. She greets him, and after saying the confession starter pleasantries, she blushes and asks him to become her slave. The sound of that first shocks Keiki, and after confirming what she meant to say, he doesn't know how to respond to her. However, she forces him to become her slave and promises to reward him in a secret way. The next moment, Keiki goes through the most perverted and aggressive experience of his life when Yuika makes him pass out by doing an awkwardly perverted thing to him. The next morning, Keiki has a nightmare in which he sees a shy princess abducting a prince and then forcing him to become her slave. He doesn't want to go to school after his last experience with Yuika, but Mizuha forces him to go anyway. Keiki stands before his locker thinking that neither Sayuki nor Yuika is the one who put the love letter in the clubroom for him, which suddenly he screams when he sees a woman's garment in his locker. Later, he goes to Yuika and confirms that the woman's garment was actually left by her in his locker. He gets mad at her and refuses to keep the garment and returns it to her. As their conversation proceeds, Yuika reads him her picture book story, which is the same as the one he saw in his dream. He tries to ignore the story, but Yuika forces the idea on him by saying that the story depicts the relationship they both have with each other. She then tells him that she'll have her desired relationship with him for sure, which causes Keiki to sweat on his face and run away at a pace that's unheard of. He returns to his locker and this time sees a lewd picture of him and Sayuki together with a note by Sayuki threatening him that if he doesn't come to the clubroom immediately, she'll post this picture on the internet. This makes him run straight to the clubroom. As he reaches there, he finds Sayuki dressed as an erotic maid and asking to be disciplined. Keiki is speechless when he finds out that Sayuki learned to dress like that from a book. After teasing him, Sayuki complains to Keiki that he hasn't been giving attention to her lately. She, as usual, expresses her weird fantasies to him, making him run away. During the lunch break, he eats lunch with Xiaoma and notices Mao looking at him. Xiaoma tells Keiki that Mao could be the culprit behind the love letter as she stared at him a lot. However, Keiki thinks that Mao stares at Xiaoma because of his charms, but Xiaoma guarantees him that she never looks at him when he is alone. However, she blushes when she looks at Keiki. Keiki then thinks about all the things he's been experiencing while laying on a bench and suddenly receives a text from Sayuki asking him to visit the clubroom after school. He goes to the clubroom fearing she might blackmail him again, but Yuika catches him and tricks him into asking him to close his eyes. She takes him to a room where she ties him and then demands him to pledge his loyalty to her and threatens him to steal his first kiss otherwise. As Yuika moves her face closer to Keiki, he questions where is love in the first kiss when suddenly Sayuki shows up to save him. As the girls argue, Keiki realizes they both know about each other's secret. Soon, both girls start pulling on the tied Keiki while arguing with each other. When Mao steps inside the room and takes Keiki away from both girls, she blames him for being too nice to both girls and says she also saw him with Yuika on the date the other day. When Keiko asks Mao why his going on a date bothers her, she gets flustered and says she doesn't want him to hang out with other girls, which confuses things even further for Keiki. Later, he finds Mao sleeping in the classroom and tells her that the class has ended long ago. He then asks her if she is sick, but she answers arrogantly. He, however, asks her if she wants to talk about the incident the last day, which she doesn't want to discuss at first, but then suddenly asks him to bring Xiaoma to hang out. Keiki goes to an arcade with Mao and Xiaoma where Mao has tons of fun. Xiaoma leaves Keiki and Mao and leaves for his home. Keiki goes to drop Mao at her home, saying that he can't let a girl go home alone at night, which makes her blush. On the way, Mao talks about turning friendship into a couple of things. And suddenly it starts raining and Keiki doesn't understand it at the time. While they take shelter from the rain, Mao asks Keiki about his relationship with Sayuki and Yuika, as she has seen them both fighting over him. He tells her that he doesn't have any special relationship with them. Instead, both girls just feel comfortable around him. He suddenly notices Mao freezing because of her wet clothes and goes to fetch hot drinks for them. When he returns, he sees her staring at Xiaoma's picture on her mobile. Keiki asks her if she likes Xiaoma, to which she strongly disagrees and says that she is not interested in him in such a way and runs away from there. The next day at school, Xiaoma, Sayuki, and Yuika notice Keiki acting strange and worried. When he returns home, Mizuha pets him on his head and asks him if there is something troubling him. He tells her that things between him and Mao have been awkward lately, and he thinks that she's hiding something from him and that he might have hurt her feelings somehow. Mizuha advises him to be himself around Mao and try to cheer her up in his own way. The next day at school, Keiki tries to talk to Mao, but she leaves the classroom. He chases her and tries hard to talk to her. She says to him that he has made everything difficult for her, as she thinks about him all night and says that it's all his fault. Not knowing how to react, Keiki apologizes to her for making things difficult for her and says he wants to know more about her. Keiki then asks her to be his friend again, and he'll do anything for her if she forgives him. This moves Mao deeply as she walks closer to him, asking him if he'll do anything for her. Keiki starts thinking that Mao is the one behind the love letter when suddenly she confesses that she wants him and Xiaoma to be in a relationship with each other. When Keiki hears her say that, he gets weirded out and asks her why he would do that. Mao reveals that she is a fujoshi and is writing a fujoshi manga. When he sees a title cover of her fujoshi manga based on characters that look like Xiaoma and him, he massively freaks out. He asks her to use different characters besides him and Xiaoma, but she bewilders him by telling him that a manga based on their characters has already been published, and the people are looking forward to the next one. Keiki's getting freaked out combo reaches the next level, and he refuses to get into a relationship with Xiaoma, but Mao threatens to ruin his every date with any girl if he doesn't do what she says. After leaving Mao in the hallway, Keiki walks towards his locker with dead eyes, thinking that Mao is also crazy like Yuika and Sayuki, which makes him feel down as all three love letter suspects are total freak shows. As he opens his locker, he sees his picture with a girl this time and screams loudly once again.